we will start from the lecture by Žarka Svirčev, The Zenit Woman Towards a Portrait of a Yugoslav Avant-garde Woman, which will start our seminar, because Žarka, I believe, she will focus on the moment when the Zenit group was established in the 20s. So Žarka Svirčev is a senior research fellow at the Institute for Literature and Art in Belgrade, in the periodical department for the history of Serbian literature and culture. She published the book That Identity, Deconstructions of Gender Stereotypes in the work of Dubravka Ugrešić, and many other. She is also the editor of the conference proceedings book Women's Movement 1920-1938, published in 2021 with Jelena Milenković, and the editor of the collection of papers Becoming a Women Writer in Serbian Culture, just recently in 2022. And I think that we can also tell you that Žarka, she is also responsible for a part of the Instituto Susch research. Her field of interest is are the activities of Judita Šalgo.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Marika, for this introduction, and thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted to participate in this seminar, and of course, I'm looking forward to hear my colleagues. So, I'm interested in female authorship in the magazine Zenit, one of the most significant Yugoslav avant-garde magazines. While researching this topic, I aimed to shape a narrative about Zenithist women. The meanings of this narrative depend on which positions and from whose perspective we view it. It is a fluid concept through which different gender discourses intersect. And the narrative of female authorship in Zenit challenged the dominant conceptions of the avant-garde, at least in Yugoslav cultural field. And these conceptions either ignore female authorship or do not respect the specifics of women's text policies conditioned by the gendered experience of the world, because they do not coincide the masculine discourse set as the norm. And today I will pay special attention to Anuška Micić. But firstly, the International Review for the New Art Zenit was launched in Zagreb in February 1921 by Ljubomir Micić, writer, collectioner, organizer of exhibitions, and designer of almost all Zenitist publications. Micić transferred the magazine to Belgrade in May 1923, and Zenit was often attacked by the media, persecuted and banned by police, put on trial several times, and it existed until December 1926, when the number 43 was prohibited because of the accusation of calling for the Bolshevik revolution. So the magazine Zenit was a vital micro-institution of Zenitism and an international platform for various movements and ideas. And Zenitism was built on different tendencies existing in post-World War I Europe, the metacosmical expressionist mysticism and cosmopolitanism, then Dadaist anarchism, the futurist ideas were strong, and we have evidence of essential influence of Russian and Dutch constructivism and Bauhaus functionalism. And the texts were published in original languages and addressed literature, poetry, philosophy, all forms of visual arts, theater, cinema, social and political life. And the magazine had a pervasive network of collaborators. And the magazine had several women in its ranks. As you can see, the number of Zenit female associates is small. And if we make conclusions only based on the number, we can assert the minor status of the female authors in Zenit. However, contextualizing the magazine more broadly gives us a different perspective. Because Zenit is an interesting case on the Serbian or Yugoslav magazine scene in the early 20s, Zenit is the only avant-garde magazine in early 20s with female authorship in various positions. And the magazine Zenit represents a privileged research field. It opens the possibility to examine the poetic, social, and ideological mechanisms of female authorship in the avant-garde magazine. The figure of Anuška Micić, alias Nina Naj, is challenging and provocative because it deconstructs our notion of Zenitism and its actors. The published biographical data of Anuška Micić, as well as information about her work, are very modest and fragmentary. However, the reduced data and the material seem to open the possibility of different representations. And this issue goes to the core of the discursive fashioning of narratives about female authorship in the avant-garde context. And the strategies for shaping narratives about female authors are the main methodological question I will address during my presentation. What we learn about Anuška from biographical articles, we learned that she was wife, Ljubomir Micić wife, inspiration and muse, but not only for Ljubomir Micić, but for some other authors. She was secretary of the magazine Zenit. She is author of the small number of texts, and she signed only as a translator. And in Ljubomir Micić legacy is stored her portrait and correspondence. So in biographical articles, we can depict it typical patriarchal interpretations or norms of interpretation. Ljubomir Micić is equated with Zenitism. Woman is the muse of the avant-garde, and woman does minor work, of course, in the service of the creative genius of the man. So the example of Anuška Micić show to what extent the selectivity of sources and the patriarchal ideology of creativity when shaping literary historiographical narratives reduce knowledge and obscure the authentic phenomena of the avant-garde and the pluralism of female authorship. Because the available information about Anuška Micić could be discursively presented differently and could be strengthened with an emancipatory frame. The fact that she was a secretary and translator at Zenit magazine represents precedent in Yugoslav culture. Anuška Micić was the first woman to do these jobs in Avant-garde magazine, being an active member of the avant-garde of the avant-garde group. The statement that the number of her articles in Zenit magazine is negligible has a valuable overtone. We can ask why Anuška should be valued for what she does not have and what maybe she was not even inclined to. The statement that she signed only as a translator also contains a valuable connotation. And this raises the question of our perception and conception of the avant-garde. If we understand personal cooperation on various projects as the culmination of avant-garde activities, and if we conceptually view the avant-garde as an act or process of networking, then we can perceive different positions within the network in a new light. We can comprehend Anuška Micić translation work in the context of the Zenithist idea of polyglotism and the international field of action as one of the most crucial roles. She was an essential cultural transmitter. Anuška worked in a multidirectional way as she promoted Zenithist or Yugoslav culture in the new cultural environments, translating Zenithist text into German, and acquainted the Yugoslav cultural space with the achievements of foreign artists. She translated, for example, the text of Claire Gow, Kandinsky, and Josef Peters. And I will mention another possibility. In 1924, Ljubomir Micić translated, wrote the preface, and published Prolet Kult, but not under his name, but under the initials, and scholars assume that they are probably the initials of his wife Anuška Micić and Ljubomir himself. However, we can assume that the translation of this book is results of their cooperation. So in biographical articles and biographical narratives on Anuška Micić, the question of source is main issues. The discourse of her biography supports the discourse of Ljubomir Micić. And this is no exception in Serbian literary historiography. Narratives about the avant-garde are built based on program text and memoirs of men, full of self-promoting mystifications. The external sources are entirely neglected. And in the case of Anuška Micić, these sources are crucial for reinterpretation of her place and contribution to the magazine. And I must say that scholars and researchers of Zenithism, although they had before them a wide range of materials, visual sources, newspaper articles, correspondence, use them selectively, persistently excluding Anuška Micić from the Zenithist narrative. For example, we have one interesting article from 1924. The title of this article is Who is Mrs. Nina Nai? And this article calls into question the untouchable authority of Ljubomir Micić. And besides Anuška Micić secretarial activities, this article points to her exceptional education and knowledge of arts and her authority in the Zenithist circle. Also, we learn from this article that she was not automatically part of the Zenithism as a wife, but she was the enthusiastic Zenithist woman. So we can conclude that she participated in different aspects of Zenit production. And making this assumption goes into the domain of privacy. By their very lifestyle, the actors of Zenitism reshape the traditional concept of private and public, home and workspace. The editorial office of Zenit magazine was located in the apartment of Ljubomir and Anuška Micić, as well as the Zenit gallery. And the sphere of privacy became a specific Zenitist toponym, a place of revolutionizing life practice, its aestheticization, that is politicization. The business activities and roles performed by Anuška Micić, as well as her work, suggest that she was an active participant in modeling the space of privacy as a new place of avant-garde life and artistic practice. The Zenitist privacy illuminates the domain in which her authority was relevant and leaves us the opportunity to look at it in an emancipatory register, because it did not concern exclusively privacy policy, but supported the discursive shaping of the public practice. In other words, only when we look at the space of privacy in a different light compared to the traditional private-public oppositions, when we recognize that the space of privacy was a place of avant-garde practice, then the female authorship articulated in that space, we can move it outside of categories that marginalize it and finally suppress and erase it. And it's very interesting that in contrast to Anglo-American editors of modernist magazines, Central Eastern European female authors in magazine projects worked predominantly in the sphere of non-discursive authorship, financing of magazine and other avant-garde projects, logistics, collaborative on-site editorial work. For example, Nelly Walden, Jolan Shimon, Anna Melania Maxi. And interestingly, these three women were also partners of the authors, Herbert Walden, Lajos Kašak, and Herman Maxi, with whose groups the Zenitists collaborated. Okay, and just a second. So we also have some visual sources that we can reinterpret it. Vera Biller introduced Anuška Micić on a pastel published in the Jubilee issue of Zenit. 5 years of Zenit are presented as 2 years. In the smaller gear is written the time frame of the magazine, and in the larger, which occupies the central part, there are 2 stylized figures. We can assume Anuška and Ljubomir Micić. The male figure holds a lantern, an allusion to Micić's text, Revolution in the White City, a man is wanted. And the female figure standing next to him, shown in half profile, staring at the viewer. And one detail is especially symbolically challenging, namely the female and male figures are almost identically visual shaped. The stylization of the color separates them. The hairstyle, the bubikopf, connect them. Anuška Micić wore this hairstyle, and this hairstyle was a sign of women's emancipation in the 20s. The working principle of the gears, as well as the androgyny of the figures, points to the Zenitism as a result of unity, connection, partnership, intellectual and emotional, and the alliance of Ljubomir and Anuška Micić. And we have this extraordinary portrait of Vilko Gecan. And in the portrait, Anuška Micić is presented in the style of bohemian type of woman. And this type of femininity, popularized at the beginning of 20th century, expressed women's emphasized need for self-expression and participation in public life, especially on the art scene. And the curiosity in this picture is Anuška Micić's cloche hat. Namely, the fashion of cloche hats arrived in Belgrade and Zagreb during the 1924, and the portrait was created in 1921. So the visual representation, and I would say self-representation, that Anuška Micić chooses for her portrait express the most current style and attitude of emancipated women European metropolises. And finally, the correspondence of Ljubomir and Anuška Micić, stored in the National Library of Serbia and published last year, has not been used in the historiography of the movement or its actors. However, this correspondence is a valuable source, especially for shedding light on the life and work of Anuška Micić. By the way, correspondence was conducted in the post-Zenithist period, but based on it, we can conclude a lot about Micić's Zenithist period, their understanding of Zenitism, and the dynamics of their relationship. We have learned from the correspondence that the Zagreb paper factory Lipa Mill is owned by Anuška Micić's uncle, Matija Freund. The sales branch of this company was run in Belgrade by Anuška Micić. From there came all the funds that Micić invested in their projects, first in the magazine and then in the Zenit library and international exhibition. Nothing was published without Anuška mediation, approval, consulting, and co-editorial work. She was an educated, employed, and capable woman who, in addition to running a trade business at Lipa Mill branch, managed to consistently participate in the production and design of magazine and movements that she, unlike the scholars, never treated only as a matter of her husband. For her, and also for Ljubomir Micić, Zenitism was a live, artistic, collaborative project. So, in the shadow of the cloche hat, we are not watched by Ljubomir Micić's Anuška, muse, and inspiration, but by the Zenithist woman, polyglot, cosmopolitan, translator, co-editor, secretary, manager, and collector. In one undated letter to Ljubomir Micić, Anuška Micić wrote, "You gave me a pen without ink." A pen without ink is an effective metaphor for non-discursive female authorship in the avant-garde context. Only by methodologically appreciating the formative role of collaborative and non-discursive aspects of authorship and contribution to the avant-garde projects can Invisible Link be read. It was suppressed by the male authoritative word, which Anuška Micić's statement points to, the avant-garde artist's written word, and its uncritical reproduction in later historiographic reviews and narratives. the metaphor of pen without ink does not suggest a marginalized status of female authorship. It implies a subject position, work, and collaboration in those domains that women creatively preferred or were able to do them. And encouraged by the case of Anuška Micić, I found one more woman editor, avant-garde woman editors. You can see the cover page of Bosanska Vila, Bosnian Fair. The co-editor of this magazine was Stoja Kašiković, and that magazine was the avant-garde platform of revolutionary youth in the eve of the First World War. Also, the pen without ink of avant-garde editors, female editors, however, in a broader context, illuminates another lacuna in the narrative of the avant-garde in Yugoslav culture. Suppose we follow the trail of this metaphor in a conceptual sense. In that case, we can ask questions about various non-discursive aspects of female authorship that are still not integral to our knowledge of the avant-garde. It's about the participation of women in various performance projects. And you can see the picture of Maga Magazinović, the avant-garde dancer and Yugoslav avant-garde studies even today overlooked her dance and her dance theories. So, reading, understanding, and interpreting cultural text written with a pen without ink deepens and enriches our knowledge of Yugoslav avant-garde art. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Žarka, for this amazing presentation. I must say that I have a lot of questions, but we will have this discussion to sum up the panel. So I would just wanted to tell that this metaphor, a pen without ink, it's really moving, and it's something which unfortunately can be implemented to many other women artists. So we can say a pen without ink, a paintbrush without paint, and so on and so on. So I would like to thank you again for this amazing presentation and for your whole research that you're doing. And I think it's really something incredible. And I will gladly ask you some more questions after all our after the whole panel.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.